this guy has no family. He's by himself on Christmas, just came back from Afghanistan, and you're gonna send him on Christmas morning by himself? She was livid. She goes, and she's crying the whole time. Nah, I said, don't worry about it. In my head, nobody's shooting at me. Like, whatever, bro. Like, so I had a shopping bag full of clothes. This is I swear to you, every word of this story is true. You're not gonna believe it here in a minute. They have a tradition every single Christmas that her father refused to let falter.
I'm so excited for our guest today, Edward Buddy Rushing, one of the founders of White Feather Investments, Marine, husband, father, entrepreneur, and so much more. This is going to be a show you are definitely not going to want to miss. And trust me, by the time Buddy is done, you will be following him. Buddy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it. The other co-founder of White Feather Investments happened to be somebody named Kimberly,
yes,
who is also my wife. So that's a story that you might want to hear, right?
Do you want to start? Do you want to start with that?
I'm just saying, like, we're driving down the road one time. I mean, we're freshly married, right? We have nothing. She works at Napa Auto Parts driving around car batteries, right? I am a first lieutenant in the Marine Corps stationed at 29 Palms, California, and we're just kind of trying to figure out life. And so we're like, man, we really want to get involved in this real estate stuff. We want to launch our own business.
Oh, okay.
What do you want to call it? And we're driving by, and we see this sign that says White Feather Road. I'm not kidding. You can't make this stuff up. And she goes, oh, what about White Feather? Like, that's a beautiful name. It's like, I've just got this imagery in my mind of this beautiful feather, and it's peaceful and it's loving. And I'm like, you know what else? White Feather was the nickname of Carlos Hathcock, who was the deadliest sniper in Marine history. He used to wear a white feather in his boonie cover to taunt the Viet Cong as he stalked them. Right? So I was like, that's a badass name for a company. And she was like, oh, yeah, sure. But it's also super peaceful and loving. And so we compromised, and that's why it's called White Feather.
Buddy, are you and Kimberly like yin and yang?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
She's talking about love and you're thinking about death.
Yeah, I never put it like that, but that's exactly what happened. Yeah. That was like 16 years ago.
We are literally 1 minute into this, and it's just straight fire. When did you meet Kimberly?
Actually, I met her when I went to Annapolis, the Naval Academy in Maryland. And I was a junior, and they had opened this video rental store inside the campus, this tiny little closet with DVDs, right? Back when we used
Blockbuster?
Yeah, kind of like Blockbuster, but like a tiny little version of it. So I walk in there, I'm a midshipman at the time, and I walk in there and I see this and I'm like, oh man, I want to go watch Die Hard, right? Which amazing movie. And it's near Christmas, and it's obviously a Christmas movie. Yes, it is. And so I walk in there and I go in, and I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of my wife, but she has this long flowing blonde hair. She's very pretty. And so I'm like this, 19-year-old kid. And I walk in and I see her sitting behind the counter.
You were 19?
Oh yeah. And I walk in and I see her and I'm like, whoa, right? Because the Naval Academy is mostly men, and it's very military. It's very, you just don't see people like that normally, just with like flowing hair and beauty, but and so I walk in and I was like blown away. And I spent the next several years trying to get a date with her, and she would not date me. And
How come?
Kimberly, she said, I do not date midshipmen. I don't want to have a life of being married to someone in the military, right? I just want to have a husband that can be with me and stay home and is not deployed all the time. And she just didn't want that life. And she was very mature for 18 years old. And so she didn't go on a date with me. And I graduated, and I got stationed over in Okinawa, and we lost touch, right? That was before all of social media. And so we lost touch for years. And I remember telling people when I would go out on, the Marine Expeditionary Unit, 31st MU, I would go out on patrol in Afghanistan. I'd always talk about her, and she was always the one that got away, right? Because I didn't know where she was. I didn't have her phone number. This was before like complete interconnectivity.
You didn't even have any of her contact info?
No, this was 2005, man.
That was before iPhones.
Before iPhones, right? So it's not like you can just be like, oh, here's a WhatsApp,
Hey, Kimberly.
Yeah.
You remember me at the video store?
Dude, and so this is going to blow your mind. I go on my first combat tour, which was in 2005-ish, 2006, I go to Southeast Afghanistan, which is, at the time, everybody was in Iraq. Afghanistan was the Wild West. And we went to Paktika province, was the center of the Wild West. I mean, like, it was me, 3 other Marines, and then about 100 Afghan soldiers. And I remember my the lieutenant colonel who was in charge of us, Colonel Fosdal, he said, "Hey, Rusty, I need you to go to the Southeast Bazaar, secure a 16-click stretch of the border, kill bad guys and save good guys, and let me know if you need anything." I was like 24, right?
By yourself?
Well, me and 2 other Marines and then the Afghans, right? And so we go down there, and it is very, very kinetic, right? It's very, like, you know, lots of suicide bombers and rockets and mines and things like that. And IEDs were just starting to become a thing. So lots of people getting hurt, lots of people getting killed. And it's very dark, right? Super dark. And you kind of just give up the idea that you're ever going to make it home. You just kind of, right? Because if you think about like that, you're just scared all the time. And so you just focus on your mission and you're just, well, I'm probably not going to make it, but I mean, that's, at least I'm doing something I believe in, right? Saving my Marines and serving my country. And so, we were attached to a special forces unit, ODA 171, which is an Army special forces unit. And they gave me this satellite tough book. Right. So this satellite suite, you put it on top of this mud hut we were living in. And then this tough book, which was a laptop, but ruggedized. Right.
Right.
And so that right about that time, MySpace came out. You remember that?
Tom, I do.
Tom was everybody's friend. Right.
Mom.
Yeah.
MySpace.
So I create a MySpace account and whatever. And then one day, right in the middle of the deployment, I get a message on MySpace from this girl. And I can still remember the picture. It's this black and white photo. She's smiling, blonde hair flowing with this like Nike tennis visor, like cocked to the side. And that was the picture. And it was just this flashback of memory of all of these memories just flooded back. And she said, "Hey, is this the buddy that I used to know?" And that was right in the middle of my Afghan deployment. And we don't have time for the rest of the story, but I'll tell it to you some other time.
You got to be kidding me.
That really happened.
So you met her when you were 19.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in Afghanistan
24,
at 24.
25. I just turned 25. So yeah, 6 years later.
So you said you were, it was a dark, you're talking about it was a dark mindset, right?
Yeah, totally.
You're in dark
death
space.
everywhere. Yeah. So like you're just.
How did that help you?
It was a light. It was a bright, shining light. I can still feel it. It was a bright light in the midst of just really darkness. Because what happens is the second that you see somebody die in front of you, the second that you see how quickly life can get snuffed out, you stop really believing in your invincibility.
Right.
And when that happens, you have 2 choices. You can either be paralyzed by fear, or you can be like, F it. I don't know what we're allowed to say on this podcast.
You can say whatever the fuck you want.
Honestly, that's what you're like, fuck it. And that's what you choose, because fear, being paralyzed by fear just sucks. It just sucks. And so you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm probably going to die. But you know what? I'm going to die doing something that I believe in, which is my mission. And the mission wasn't, people think about this all the time. They're like, oh, what was your mission over there in Afghanistan? My mission was to bring Sergeant Mac home. My mission was to bring my Marines home. My mission was to help the people that were right outside of our position, the women and children that were being abused and being killed and being raped. That was what my mission was, because every time I was in that village, they wouldn't do it, right? Every time and when I say I mean we, every time we were in that village, and the people that would normally abuse and terrorize and kill them could see us with our 50 cals and our M4s and our Mark 19s and all, they knew that we wouldn't put up with it. And so for at least that day, right, those people could live in relative peace and security. That was the day-to-day mission. You got to think like that. Sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not, right? I remember putting together a school that was blown up that we had just built. And, literally the day after we were going to open it, they just blew it up with bombs. And so you're like, well, okay. So you get in this dark mindset of, I'm not going to make it, day by day, right? Reality doesn't exist, bro.
Right.
Like, we're living in Southern California right now, right? Right. It's like, come on, nobody's going to hurt me here. Nobody's going to, right? Maybe I'll get mugged, maybe, but probably not, right? But that life doesn't exist when you're in Afghanistan. You might as well not even, but then this picture from the past comes through, and this innocent message. And all of a sudden, all of that humanity comes flowing out of that.
Amen.
And I mean, I'm sitting there just crying, like alone in this little mud hut. It's called a kalot. And I'm just sitting there just like weeping, just like, and there's so much emotion there. And I still have the messages. So we captured all those messages. We still have them saved in like a folder on Google Drive. And the messages I was sending her were straight out of my soul. It was like crazy, dude.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you process like your vulnerability at that moment? Cause you're like, hey, this is fucking it. Like you saw the light. Was there any doubt at that moment that, and by the way, thank you for your service. Like I genuinely, I mean, to hear these stories, like I know I have it easy. A lot of us have it easy. And that's why I have such a deep gratitude for like, how many jobs are you risking your life?
Yeah. Yeah. Not many cops, firefighters to some degree and military people. And I mean, it's, well, I appreciate that. But how you process that, you put them in boxes, or at least I did. I put them in boxes. When I was inside that collide, I wasn't really safe because we did have rockets come through and blow through the wall, and you normally think you're safe. But anyway, so I'm sitting there thinking I'm in relative safety because I'm inside the wire and I'm inside this mud collide. And so you don't think about it too much. You just kind of put it out of your mind. And then in that box, I open that box and I'm talking with her, and I'm just full pure emotion. I'm just pure love. I'm pure like humor. I'm flirting with her madly.
Nice.
Right? Even though she had a boyfriend at the time.
See, being a typical guy, man.
Yeah, like I couldn't possibly have cared less that she had a boyfriend, because I was like, I'm not going to make it out of here anyway.
Oh,
right?
shit.
I'm not going to make it out. So I was flirting madly with her, and and she was not, to her credit, she was not flirting with me. She was like, because I was being playful, right? And I was being like humorous and everything. And she would like ignore it or like chuckle it off or whatever. Just, how are you doing, this and that? And it's hilarious to look back at those messages, because this is a guy, I remember that guy was clearly in a position where he's like, this may be the last conversation I have, because tomorrow I'm going out on a patrol. And the last time we went out on patrol, there was a suicide bomber that hit the front of our patrol, and it killed 2 of the Afghans that were up front because he had nails strapped into C4 on his chest. So this may be the last time I talk to her. So I'm going to leave it all out. I'm going to tell her exactly what I'm feeling. Right. And so that's what it was. And, it's kind of wild to look back. But once that was done, and you wake up the next morning and it's time to put on your gear and go on patrol, you close that box and you put it in, and you say, okay, if that was the last time that I had that discussion, then thank you, God. Thank you for that. And if I don't make it past today, thank you for that. And for everything that I've had in my life up to this point. And that's what you do. And then when you make it back safe the next day, you're like, okay, maybe I can open this box a little bit more. And that's what you do. And I don't have any idea if that's the right way to do it, but that's what I did.
That's the best life moment right there.
It was the best I could figure out how to do.
I know that's crazy that. So how does the story end? What happens? You obviously make it back.
Yeah. So I made it back. I remember lifting off out of Kabul airfield. We called it CAF. Lifting off out of CAF, and I'm in the airplane, and I remember like you got to wait till you get above RPG level before you can celebrate, right? And so you're taking off, and you're like, well, I could still get hit by an RPG. So you're like, whoo, right? And then you get above RPG level, and you're like, sweet, right? Very little chance I crash. I'm headed to Turkey or Incirlik or wherever we're going. And then I remember saying like, because I remember saying like at the last week or two, I was like, God, if you can get me through this last 2 weeks, I will be the type of man that she would want as a husband. Because before that, I was not. I was a typical young guy, typical like shenanigans all over the world, young Marine, right? Not the type of person that is a good husband and father, right? I'll admit that. And I remember saying, number one, I will put it all on the line. Even if she rejects me, I will put it all out there, because that's the biggest fear as guys. You know that. Every guy knows that. It is not fear of death or snakes. It is fear of rejection by a woman who holds your heart. That is the number one fear for men, right? And I was like, you know what? I have this saying, and Kimberly will tell you to this day, I say this all the time whenever things are going bad, whenever there's frustrations or any type of real pain or problems, whether it be health or business or whatever. Nobody's shooting at me. Nobody's shooting at me. And so when I went back home, the prospect of being rejected by her, while seriously scary and painful wasn't as bad as someone shooting at me.
Right.
And so, and again, like, I don't know if any of this is smart. It's just what I did. And so I went back and her birthday is 3 days separated from mine. Mine's December 18th, hers December 21st. And so I was alone around the Christmas time frame. And she said, what are you doing for your birthday? And I said, well, I'm going to go to Vegas because I was in 29 Palms, California at the time, which is a couple hours drive.
Right.
And I was alone. I didn't have any family out there. So nothing to do. So I'm going to go to Vegas. And I was like, "Do you want to come out and see me?" And she goes, "Sure. I can't afford it." And I was like, "Well, we called it GWAT money, Global War on Terror. So if you go to Afghanistan, you don't spend any money. You're making money tax free, but there's nothing to spend it on. So you come back with like 20 grand, right?"
Okay.
And to me at the time, I was like, I am so rich. I'm like the richest person in the world, right? And so I got GWAT money. I'll fly you out, right? And so I flew her out to Vegas and I did everything. I mean, I'm telling you, I took her up in a helicopter over the strip. I wrote her a poem. No kidding. And I'm not even a writer.
Mr. Romance.
No, I did everything,
bro.
right? I poured my heart out to her, everything. And yeah, she definitely did not reciprocate in Vegas. And then she flew out. I told you this was a long story. You asked for it. I tried to cut it off.
I want to hear. You cannot tell a story like that and then leave the audience hanging. They would kill me.
Well, I did everything you could think of in Vegas to be impressive and to tell her, how I felt, to put it all out on the table, right? And she wasn't buying it. She was very she
wasn't buying it.
She was just careful with her heart, is what it was. She'll tell you. She definitely, she felt like she loved me and that she wanted to, but she was just scared, right? And so she had walls up, massive walls, right? And I think she's the most beautiful woman in the world. And so when you're that pretty, you have to have walls or guys are just going to be bugging you all the time, right? And so she had massive walls. And, I was trying my best, but didn't happen in Vegas. And then it was like, well, what are you doing for Christmas? And I said, well, I don't have any family. I really played the pity card. It's like, just back from Afghanistan, don't have any family,
poor buddy,
by myself, not doing anything. And she's like, you play every card you got, right? Work? Oh yeah. She was like, why don't you come back and spend Christmas with me and my family? And so I was like, okay, buy a plane ticket right there, right? So I bought a plane ticket, flew out to Philly, which is where she was going to school. And then we go down to Christmas and, I'm just going to tell you the story. And Kimberly, you're going to have to forgive me. I don't know how many people are going to see this. She doesn't like this part of the story, but you've already gotten us this far, right? And this is not a good part. So we go down and it's Christmas Eve and we're like, okay, we're going to spend time with your family next morning. Her family, she has 2 brothers and a father and a stepmother. And her brothers found out that she was bringing some strange guy home and literally revolted. The morning of Christmas, they were like, no way. He is not going to be here. And then the dad sided with them. No way. He cannot be here.
Really?
The stepmom knew me. She worked at the Naval Academy. She knew who I was. Okay. She knew that I was, she knew that I was, that I had just come back from Afghanistan and that I was a Marine officer and everything. And so she was like, what are you talking about? Literally, this guy has no family. He's by himself on Christmas, just came back from Afghanistan, and you're going to send him on Christmas morning by himself? She was livid, but she could not sway the dad and the brothers. And so they called Kimberly and said, get your ass over here, basically. We're going to celebrate Christmas. And she was mortified, right? And I told her, I was like, nah, don't worry about it. In my head, nobody's shooting at me. Whatever, bro.
It's all good.
And let her, I know she's dying already, by this embarrassment. So just make it easy on her. That was really where I came out. And I was like, don't worry about it. I trust me, I can handle myself. I'll go find something to do. This is I swear to you, every word of this story is true. You're not going to believe it here in a minute. So she goes and she's crying the whole time. And she and the stepmom, her name's Ellen, the whole morning, she was like, we were upstairs just crying the whole morning and just being so mean to the other guys. And it was a terrible Christmas morning, right?
Oh.
So I don't have a car, right? Okay. I just flew out last minute. I don't even have a suitcase because my clothes were in my car that I drove to Vegas to see her. And so I put them in a bag, like a shopping bag. So I had a shopping bag full of clothes. And I'm walking because I don't have a car. And I'm walking, and in Annapolis, they've got everything was closed. Everything, it was freezing, right? This is Maryland. It was absolutely freezing. Everything's closed, and I'm sitting here freezing. I remember passing a bum on the side of the road, and I've got my bag full of clothes. And he gave me the what's up nod. He was like, he walked by and he's like, yeah, what's up? And I'm like,
dead, man.
I was like walking with my clothes, right, shivering, right, because I'm California. I don't have cold weather gear, and so I'm walking. I eat breakfast on Christmas morning at Denny's, which was open, right, and so I'm sitting there having a Denny's breakfast. And, Kimberly's like texting me at the time and she's like, this is miserable. I hate it. And I was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry. I'm going to go, find someplace warm, basically. And so I walk to the movie theater, a Cinemax, and it's open. And so I walk in and I'm like, oh, it's warm in here. Just give me a ticket to the first movie you can find, Alien versus Predator.
Perfect.
AVP. I'm like, whatever. It's Christmas. It's going to be warm. I walk in just as the movie is opening up. And there's no seats. Everybody, I guess, goes to the movies on Christmas. So I get up and I sit in the next to back row by myself. I'm empty in the row and I'm just watching the credits and I'm just like, chilling. This group of people walk up. This is 100% true. This group of people walk up and sit in behind me and I start hearing them chatter, right? Because they're talking and some guy's got a booming voice and, a couple of girls and this and that. All of a sudden I recognize Kimberly's voice.
No fucking way.
100% true. They have a tradition of going to the movies every single Christmas that her father refused to let falter. So they're sitting behind me, her two brothers, her stepmom, and her dad behind me, Alien versus Predator, while this movie opens. I swear to you. And then the screen comes up and it's bright. And so she looks down and sees me. I'm the only one in front of them. And I hear her go, oh my God. Right? And she turns to her stepmother and she's like, this is chatter, chatter, chatter. And I was like, okay, this is too fucking weird. Like, this is way too weird. And so I got up and left. Oh. And the end of the story is after that, her walls crumbled. When we met up afterwards, right? It was like, that was the end of it. And then it was like, hey, I'm gonna go meet up with Buddy. We met up afterwards and she was like a different person. She was so grateful that I didn't cause a scene, that I was gracious about it. I was like super nice about everything. And she was so mortified with how her family acted that she was fully open to her emotions at that point. And by the time 2 days later, I left on a plane back to California, we were dating. And 4 months later, we were married. And we've been married 15 years.
Fucking A.
Isn't that crazy story?
That is one of the best fucking stories I've ever.
I did not expect to. What time is it? We've used up all our time on this story.
No. We don't have a stop clock here. I had to hear the ending of that story. That is like, okay. So I'm going to give you some feedback. When you talk about Kimberly, the joy that comes out of your heart.
Yeah.
It is like you can feel the energy.
Yeah, she's a rock star.
That is a great fucking story. And I was going to tell you, how dare you fucking come here without her with that story? We are bringing her back.
We got to bring her back and have her give her version of it.
And I want her version of it. Because I want to know like what she said to her dad and her brothers after you walked out of the theater.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
So how's your relationship with the brothers and the dad?
So we have no relationship with the brothers because she has no relationship with them, right?
Okay.
The dad and we're best buds now.
That's awesome.
Like, yeah, but I tell you, the stepmom, Ellen, she has used that as ammunition against him for years now.
Oh, like, she's got leverage,
every time he does something wrong, she's like, yeah, but you kicked the Marine out on Christmas.
So she loves you. You gave the ultimate leverage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, we're all great friends now. They come over and watch the kids and they're wonderful people. They're wonderful people. And, it's all kind of, for years and years and years, it's been great. But yeah, the brothers, no, they're like kind of effed up, it's like, so.
It's hey man, family, we don't get to pick our family.
No, we do not.
It is what it is.
Yeah, that's right.
I appreciate that story. Like that just gives so much insight into like how, now I understand how you guys run a business together. So the white feathers is really cool. I really love the story of fucking love and death. Yeah. That's how I'm going to describe it from now on. Love and death. White feathers, let's talk about your passion. Cause that's not you're an entrepreneur, but that's a passion, right?
Yeah. It's totally different. I mean, it feels like a calling more than anything else. Kind of like, being a Marine, right? It's like, you don't join the Marine Corps because it's like, oh, I need a job. I mean, some people I think do, but they realize very quickly that was not a good idea. Like the people who really thrive in the Marine Corps are the ones who they're called to it.
Right.
Right. In my opinion. And so, I mean, dude, I grew up, I was the youngest of 5 kids in, kind of a little shack in East Tennessee. Like we grew up on WIC and food stamps. I mean, I went back recently to visit family, and I remember going to the grocery store. And I remember walking down and knowing exactly where the WIC, you know what WIC is? It's like, WIC is called Women, Infants, and Children. It was back in the 80s. It was a government cheese. It was like government sponsored program where if you were poor, you could get free cheese and bread and milk. Right. And so they would have a WIC aisle. And as long as you had a WIC card, you could go, right? So it's for poor people, right? And so I remember going and picking up the WIC stuff. And then every single time we would check out, we would always have to put stuff back, because we never had enough food stamps to pay for all the food. Right. It was all, my mom, and that was literally all she had. It wasn't like, oh, let me go to the bank and get some more. That was it. Right. And so we grew up on that. And it's like, I don't know. I remember there are good things about living a simple life. And then there's a lot of pain that's associated with poverty, a lot of it. And oftentimes it's because the experience of living without and not being able to do anything because you can't afford it frustrates people. And it definitely frustrated my dad. And, he turned to alcohol to avoid that. And that, of course, as we all know, every one of us who drink or have drank, like we know that it can cause a lot more problems. Yeah. And so there was a lot of, fighting and abuse and things like that. And you experience that and you're like, man, this sucks. Like, it's not the life that I'm seeing people live on TV. It's not the life that I hear about in books. It's not like what? And I remember I didn't know how to frame it in my mind, but I remember thinking, because I grew up without electricity and running water. Like we had a well that we dug, and we'd take a bath one day a week, and we'd like heat water on a pot-bellied stove and go dump it in a bathtub and then take a bath. And like I was always the dirty, smelly kid at school, so I never had girlfriends. I never had, we couldn't afford to drive to school to participate in sports. So I never got to play sports in high school, even though I was naturally athletic. And it's like all of this shit that like you have to do. And my parents tried as hard as they could. Like it wasn't that, know, but they didn't know anything. They had no idea what to do with money. I remember my mom's as a substitute teacher, she got her first paycheck. And I don't remember how much it was, but I remember her cashing the check and having all of the money. And we gathered around the bed and we're like, yay, it's going to be awesome. And she threw the money up and it came down and we were like, this is awesome. So much money. And then she spent all of it on fireworks. And at the time I'm a kid and I'm like, this is awesome. Fireworks. Yay. But I didn't equate it to the fact that we were living in a trailer and eating beans and rice 5 days a week. And, and my sister not being able to like, or us not having medical insurance or car insurance or any of the things that make your life better and easier. We didn't have those. And I don't blame my mother. Right. She was doing the best that she could. That's all. But she had no idea what to do or how to do it with finances. And so I remember when I graduated high school, I got accepted to the Naval Academy, which was my lifeline because I couldn't afford to go to college. I didn't have any money. And so the Naval Academy, like they'll pay for as long as you give service afterwards. Right. And so I got commissioned in the Marine Corps and I'm on patrol in Afghanistan. And this is that same deployment, 2005. So I'm on patrol in Afghanistan in a Humvee, right? And so I find this little purple book in between the radio mount and the seat. And it's a little purple book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
No, you did not.
100%. And
you found that in the Humvee?
Yeah, in between the radio mount and the seat. And so I'm sitting here reading this thing. And I remember somebody years before saying, hey, you need to read this purple book. And I'm like, okay, whatever, right? Robert Kiyosaki, obviously, changed the world, right? He's changed, or at least America, right? And
he's changed the meaning of money for people.
Yeah.
Like it really.
Well, and what I love about what he did with that book is he took concepts that were foreign to us and he made it accessible to the kid on food stamps. Right. Right. And that's what that was me. I was the kid on food stamps reading that book. And I read it and I was like, oh my God, like I could be this. I could do this. You mean my kids don't have to grow up this way? Right. And, their kids don't have to grow up this way. Like we could change the Rushing name and what it means in America because of the freedoms that we have and because of the opportunities we have. And I remember thinking all of that. And remember you were saying I was saying you want to find your purpose in this realm of chaos and violence, which was Southeast Afghanistan at the time. And my sense of purpose was, wow, this is the dream I'm fighting for. It's not the Afghan dream. And sorry to say, like, I wasn't really fighting for the Afghan dream. I was fighting for the American dream, which I read in that book. Right. And, you know, I was like, man, I tell you what, like, if I ever get out of this, I'm going to start using this stuff. I'm going to start putting it into practice. And that's really where the idea was born. So thanks, Robert. Appreciate that. You know?
This just gets better. Just get better. You know, it's interesting that you bring up that book. That book has changed so many lives.
Mm-hmm.
All of the families that I ever, military families that are into investing, always ask them, like, what books do you read? Where do you get your financial education?
Mm-hmm.
I ask that from all my families. Mm-hmm. We have an epidemic in this country for financial education.
Absolutely.
So to hear your story about, like, how many countries can you name where you get the opportunity that you did?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. None more. I will say this, none more so than America. None more so. And that's one of the reasons that for all of our faults and all of the, you know, and I'm not a political guy, so like all of the political divides we have, all of the faults America has, and we have plenty, and we have shady parts of our history, and we've done horrible things. Roger, I got all that. Find me a country that's better at enabling and empowering somebody born with nothing to live the life of their dreams. Find me a country. For one, I've been all over the world, and I have not seen a country that offers the opportunities. It doesn't hand it to you. It offers you the opportunities through your work and through your sacrifice and through making relationships and honoring those relationships and acting with integrity. All of those things allow you to capture the American dream. Right. And that's what White Feather is. White Feather is about helping to educate and empower military people and their families and our nation's heroes to build their version of the American dream. Right. Because here's the crazy part. This is something that has always really like pained me. The people who primarily protect and preserve the American dream, which is freedom. In my mind, the American dream is freedom to live how I want, to be able to operate how I want, and to be able to have the biggest or the smallest or the most impactful or least impactful life I could ever have, the freedom to do that, right? It's the same thing that the people who pioneered America wanted was freedom, right? So to me, American dream means freedom. But the people who protect and preserve our freedom, military, police officers, firefighters, first responders, how many of them, just by and large, generalities, does that subsect of people tend to be financially free?
No.
100% no. You didn't even hesitate.
No chance.
No one in America would say, oh, a police officer's, they're financially free. Of course not. But they're primarily the people who protect and preserve the American dream. How many of them get to live it themselves? Extremely few. Right? And in my mind, what you said was, it's the epidemic of a lack of education. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not like a system against you or anything. We all, with the right education and with the right network of people and with the right amount of action, can create the life that we want.
Buddy, do you know what I love about what's happened to our society when it comes to social media? The knowledge is more accessible than ever before.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
What do you think about that?
Oh God, you're going to get me on this like.
Oh, I am going to.
Right?
Let's go. Boom.
I absolutely love the fact that in our economy, world economy, national economy, it's the gig economy, right? Gig economy means that somebody with a laptop or a phone, and how many people listening to this right now have at least a Generation 3 phone? I mean, everyone. If you don't have a phone, how are you listening to this?
Right.
If you don't have a phone, you have a more expensive laptop, or you're watching it on a friend's, which you can borrow from them. There's really no excuse anymore not to have connectivity in America, right? And so with connectivity, you have access to enough free education to graduate with a master's degree from college. There are people who, like Khan Academy, for instance. Khan Academy is it's a nonprofit.
I know Khan.
Educational, right? And it's only getting bigger. They just partnered with OpenAI to become AI enabled. And so Khan Academy offers you free. Let me just put it this way. I talked to a guy the other day and he was like, hey, I want to make it some extra income. I don't know how to do it. I don't have any money. I said, you got a phone? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, let me just give you, I'll just think of something right now. Let's just say you want to be able to create logos for people and go on Fiverr.com and create logos, which you can charge people $100 for, right? I don't know how to create logos. Okay, go on Khan Academy and look at a lesson plan that teaches you how to be a graphic designer.
Right.
You can go on Khan Academy for free, learn how to be a graphic designer, go on Fiverr, graphically design, and charge people for it. And it's pennies to do this. And you can make thousands of dollars a month from your home, right? And so there's thousands and thousands of examples. If you don't know how to make side income, and this is something, if you're listening to this and you'd hear nothing else, take this with you. If you are not creating side income in your spare time, which you do have spare time, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this. In your spare time, if you're not creating side income, that is the step number one to get you on a path to financial freedom. Go on ChatGPT right now, which is a free platform, and say, give them your scenario. I am a Marine Lance Corporal in Southern California, and I'm an, 0311 infantry. And, I have, 2 hours a day, late at night. What are my best side hustle income opportunities when I have no money? And ChatGPT will give you a list and then say, create a business plan with action items, and it'll create a business plan and action items. It's so much more accessible now than it ever has been in human history. And because it doesn't matter where you start. It just matters that you start. That's it. It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter if you're born in East Tennessee on food stamps or in the inner city or in the backwoods of West Virginia. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters that you start. And the opportunities have never been greater in human history than they are right now.
Buddy, I fucking love your story.
I'm excited. This is the most exciting time in human history to be alive.
Amen.
The most exciting time in human history. And if you just look at that, instead of looking at all the things that are going wrong, if instead you look at the opportunities, I promise you'll attract people like you into your life. You'll attract people into your life that want to help because guess what? They want to help. And then boom, like that, dude, you can be on a path that is not only getting you toward the future that you want to live, but guess what? Every single day is exciting. Every day is more exciting.
Every day is peace and happiness, and you get to give back to other people. It's incredible, the power. Do you know what? I saw an entrepreneur, and this fucking blew me up. I love what he said. He said discounts. I work way too fucking hard to give discounts.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Because it's not about money. It's about value. That's it. Because you can't, like when here's the way I look at it. I say, okay, I'm not going to spend $300 on this educational program or this book or whatever, right? Whatever video that's going to help me improve my life.
Yeah.
But I have absolutely no problem dropping $300 at the club.
Hey, no problem.
No problem whatsoever, because that's fun and I deserve it. And I fill in the blank of excuse of why I'm not moving forward in life, right?
Yep.
It's not about money. It's about value. So I agree with that. Whenever people discount things that are overwhelmingly valuable, all they're doing is diminishing the value of that in my eyes.
Yeah. And buddy, I think, having the podcast, one of the things that I appreciate, do you know how much I've learned being the host?
Oh yeah. I'm sure. There
is no way I could have gotten to know you this quickly in less than an hour. It's unbelievable. So I want to know what you and Kimberly are seriously passionate about. Tell us all about White Feathers. What is it what difference are you going to make in the military community for active duty and veterans? What's the impact that you guys are going to leave behind?
I think, so here's my general sort of thought. Our thought is that the type of people, this is an all volunteer force. There was no draft. No one in the military has been drafted. No one currently in the military has been drafted. So it's all volunteer. Ask yourself what type of people do that. By and large, there are one-offs here and there. They're just go to jail or go to, right?
Yeah.
But the vast majority, especially there are more college graduates in the military now than ever before in our nation's history.
How come?
Because there are people who see an opportunity to serve as something greater than themselves. They see an opportunity to test themselves. They see an opportunity to learn skills and to travel the world and to ultimately give back to a country that has given to them, right? And again, that's not a blanket statement, but there are lots more people that feel that way than people who are just I'm just trying to get a job. I've been the greatest part of my adult life has been in uniform. So I know what I'm talking about. So here's my thought. if you've got a generation or generations of people that feel that way, and that's why they volunteered to join the military, plus they're the type of personality that is action biased, that is disciplined, that wants structure, that is willing to sacrifice for the greater good and believes in the American dream, all of that. What happens if you give them financial freedom once they're out, or help them get financial freedom once they're out? What do you think they're going to do?
It is on. They're gonna crush it in the community.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna be your best entrepreneurs. They're gonna be the people that give back the most because they understand the sacrifice that they gave.
100%.
Like when you told your story, I was getting chills that literally I felt myself in that moment, like what you felt.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
To think that that's your job.
Yeah.
Your job is to be in death. That's crazy.
Yeah. But you hit everything. Like you basically just took my thesis and just finished it. And we just met today. So you didn't serve in the military. So the natural sort of inclination is, well, he probably won't understand the mission, but you nailed it perfectly, 100%, which means that it's probably true. Well, and that was the idea 7-8 years ago whenever we really started ramping it up. And now we have hundreds and hundreds of examples of it being true. And so at this point, our goal is, we educate and empower military and their families to build financial freedom because we believe that when they have financial freedom, and even whenever they're on the path, they're the most generous, the most impactful, the most mission-driven people. And it's true. I've got thousands of stories from White Feather of people who've been insanely, check this out, right? So I don't know when this is going to air, but in a couple of weeks from now, we're having a Financial Freedom Summit in Vegas, right?
Give it to us.
So in Vegas, we're going to be bringing in all these speakers, and they're going to be basically pouring into the people that come how to build financial freedom, how to do it without any money, right? We've got a guy that's going to talk about how he made $250,000 in 2 months using none of his own money just by plugging into, and I did this deal with him. His name's Justin Lopfe. He's amazing.
Beautiful.
Right?
I want to know, those are the kinds of people I want in my life.
Oh, of course, 100%, right? So now he's helping me coach, right? And so we're going to be filling those. Bruce Norris, who is a legend in Southern California real estate, is going to be speaking at the stage. Check this out. Bruce Norris, he held an event a couple of months ago where he had 500 people in the room and it was $500 a ticket. So he made $250,000 for 1 day of speaking, right? I asked him to come speak at this event. Not only did he volunteer for free, he's paying his own way, he's paying for his hotel room, and he's sponsoring 10 veterans to come. So Bruce is going to be out of pocket probably 10 grand. Instead of making $250,000, he's going to pay 10 grand to provide value because he's an amazing guy. There are over half the audience. We're going to have about 300 people there. Over half the audience are veterans that are sponsored by people that are not even going, that are saying, hey, I want to pay the $500 ticket to help somebody who can't afford a $500 ticket come to this event and learn something that's going to change their life. That's the community we're in. We've had people that are like, hey, bro, I can't go because I'm going to a wedding, but why don't I put $5K down on this and you put 10 people into seats where they can change their life? That's what happens when military people become financially free. And
how do I earn the right to be in your circle? Like, seriously,
it's
man.
crazy, right?
Like, I love that stuff. That's what it's all about. You pay it forward, and it's not, dude, it's not money.
Right. It's impact.
It's not money. It's impact.
Yeah, that's right. Tony Robbins said something I thought was amazing. He was like, listen, he goes, you can only make so much money, then you have to start making a difference if you want your life to have meaning. Right. And I thought that was brilliant, right? Because we're all on this path to financial freedom, and it's, we identify it and define it certain ways. But for me at the beginning, it was like 10 grand a month of passive income. And then you hit 10 grand a month and it's like, okay, now what do I do? And it's like, okay, well, maybe 20 grand a month. And then you keep going. But at some point it's like, okay, I now have lots of money. So what am I going to do, right? Am I going to just be like, F it, I'm just going to sit on a beach and do nothing? Well, I promise you after a few days of that, you're going to be like, well, okay, I need to do something to have my life have meaning. But I promise you, if you wrap and this is for the entrepreneurs that are out there, if you wrap your business around making impact and helping people, and that's how you get paid, regardless of how it is, like whatever, you create, cups. But if it's about helping people and that's how you get monetized, I promise you the impact will grow over time and that'll continue to give your life meaning. Like Tony Robbins, stacking dollars is fun up to a certain point. After a while, it's like, okay, bro, that's boring. Now what are you doing to help people?
That's sheer joy for me, what you're describing. That's sheer joy. Like,
Wait.
seriously, what you're describing about giving back. Giving back, to me, my relationships and connections are significantly more important than any monetary gain that I get.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And what you'll find is that if you build the right connections and you provide value well enough, the money comes. Like, it really does. And I mean, think about the common thread of every major, ultra successful person that's out there. And I mean ultra successful, not people who've just made a bunch of money and then created some Instagram videos and now they're riding around in a Lambo. I ignore those guys. What about people like Tony Robbins, right? Like, people who have created these like movements. They all say the same thing. Zig Ziglar.
Same thing.
Zig Ziglar says, if you help enough people get what they want, and you'll get what you want, right? And my analogy that I always use is a fireplace. I don't look at an empty fireplace and say, as soon as you start burning and providing heat, then I'll put firewood, right? That's just dumb. No one would think that. You put firewood in first and then you expect the heat, and relationships are the same. I had no idea what to expect here today. Oftentimes I don't prep for these for the legitimate reason that rehearsed speech often is not as impactful as genuine connection. Right?
Absolutely.
And so my goal here is, if we never speak again, that your life hopefully is a little bit better in some way because of what we discussed. And that's enough for me. But here's the crazy part. We almost certainly will meet again.
Oh.
And not only will your life be better by our continued interaction, so will mine. And that's how you build a network of relationships that will give you all of the money that you ever want and all the freedom and impact that you'll ever want.
And the life impact.
Yes.
The life impact. That's, buddy, when you can sincerely and genuinely with care make an impact on people's lives, and sometimes it is selfish. You're like, I genuinely made a difference today.
Mm-hmm.
I did it for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no selfishness in it.
Mm-hmm.
It was about giving back. And that's the message. It's so clear to hear from you. And it's that, I think it would sound exactly the same from Kimberly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And Kimberly is somebody who, man, she loves way better than I do, just to the world, just in general, right? She's,
it's a gift.
It is a gift, and it's natural for her. Like, I'm a little bit more of an introvert. I'll do one-on-one discussions like this, and I speak in front of groups, but I have to psych myself up, and I have to vomit in the corner, and like I know the value of speaking in front of people, and so I've learned how to do it, and I've trained on it. But it's not my nature. My nature is to go off in the corner and like read a book or whatever, right? I'm an introvert by nature. She's not. She is a pure extrovert. She has a gravitational force around her. You'll see when you meet her.
That's great. And she'll obviously be out in Vegas.
Yeah, she'll be out. Yeah, she's going to speak on stage. She doesn't know this yet.
Really? Surprise!
Surprise! She's freaking out right now.
She's going to kill you. Do you have tickets left?
We have a few, I believe.
Okay.
So we're, again, it's in a week and a half. So
this is what you're going to do, but your plan is to bring this.
Oh yeah. Okay. So we're having this one. This is kind of a larger summit. Next year is going to be even bigger. We're going to have 500 seats available next year. But then I'm going to have mini summits around the different places, and things like that. But yeah, I don't know when people will hear this, but, if they can make it in time, obviously it's going to be amazing. If not, then, we're not going anywhere. Our goal
exactly.
is to bring this message to as many people as we can,
Speaking about bringing the message, so you and Kimberly Kimberly is your branding?
Yeah, she's the chief branding officer.
Okay.
For
so
White
talk
Feather.
about what's coming. So how are you going to get the message out?
Yeah.
You're obviously, everyone can tell your passion. What brought you to your passion, the story? How are you going to get the message out there? How are you going to help more people?
Yeah, that's the stage that we're at, right? So we built in private for a long time, and it was very personal, and And I know every single person in White Feather, right? Every single person has my cell phone number. And I know that eventually does have to change, because if we want to really make generational impact, you have to scale. And so we've linked up with some amazing people. I mean, James Dixon from Absolute Motivation. So Absolute Motivation is an incredible podcast, got like 1.5 million subscribers, and they put out great content. And then James Dixon is an inspiration in and of itself. He just released his book, and it's an international bestseller like 3 weeks after he launched it, not surprisingly. So James is a dear friend of mine. He's going to be speaking in Vegas. And we've partnered up with Absolute Motivation to grow our channel, our YouTube channel and Instagram and all this stuff. Like, we never really built any of those because it was all interpersonal, organic, like that's how we wanted to grow it, grassroots, right? So now, though, we are in the process of growing all of those channels. So we're going to be doing, podcasting and speaking tours and holding summits and everything like that. And we expect a massive sort of trajectory for brand growth. We want to be able to control it to where it's, responsible. Right. And we are not open to everyone.
What does that mean, responsible? I think that's great that you bring that up. Like, what does brand responsibility mean to you?
Yes. And that's what Kimberly and I talk about all the time, because as the CBO, in my opinion, the brand is more important than anything else we do. It's more important than anything else we do. Yeah.
What did you say?
The brand is more important than anything else that we do. Why? Because the brand is a lot like the flag. When you look at the flag of America, right? It's just cloth. It's cloth and colors. If you have never heard of it, it doesn't mean anything to you other than you might say, oh, it's nice stars like you have on your shirt, right? But what we see when we see the American flag, when I see it at least, it drives into my soul, because it means everything we've talked about up to this point. It means the freedom to do all that. And it's the example of people that have come before us. I don't want to get too much into this, but the people who originally fought to free this country in the Revolutionary War, unbelievable courage. They should never have done that.
Big balls.
I mean, crazy, right? The most powerful army and navy in the history of the world, a stone's throw away, and you go, F you, we're doing this on our own. And you fight and eventually become victorious when, in fact, you should have lost. And if you had lost, you would have all been hanged. Those are the people who really put the stake in the ground at the beginning, said, this is the American dream. This is what we're going to fight for, is this idea of freedom. And yeah, it took us a while to make every American free, but like, here we are now, right? So I see the flag and I see that. So when I think of the branding for White Feather, it is, you ask anybody in White Feather, it is abundance mindset, it's integrity, it's action biased, it's accountability. People ask me all the time, dude,
say that fucking again.
Dude, it's
say the fucking A word.
Yeah, it's abundance, right? The abundance mindset, and it's what we just talked about. Provide value first, right? And so I tell people, ask me all the time this. They're like, man, in White Feather, how do you guys? So I'm going to give you a stat that's going to blow your mind. It's 100% true, and there's a reason for it. So there are about 500 people in White Feather, which is very small. And we're all normal people. There are no billionaires in White Feather. We're all people who've served in the military or family members, and we're all kind of normal people. Collectively, over the last 5 years, we've bought $1.2 billion of residential real estate. That's a B. $1.2 billion of residential real estate
with 500
people, normal people, over the last 5 years. When you do those numbers, that's pure insanity, right? Now, the reason it's happened, though, is because inside the community, the velocity of trust is lightning fast. So I call somebody up or send them a message and say, hey, I need $100,000 to be able to close on this deal. I'll get you the $100,000 back in a week. Boom. 24 hours later, or sometimes faster, 100,000's over, and boom, we do the deal, get them the money, did all this other stuff, right? We had 4 people meet each other at an event. We had a very small event, 30 people there in Carlsbad. They meet each other for the first time. They talk to each other for like 20 minutes. They're like, we love, you guys are all awesome. We're going to do business together. 3 months later, they collectively form 4 branches equity and close on a $3.1 million property in, down in Coronado Island, right? That they raised $1 million from White Feather members to close on. Then they converted it to a short-term rental, and now they're crushing over $100,000 a month on it. The reason they were able to do that so fast was because inside this community, it's filled with people that, number one, will do the right thing because in general, that's what they want to do, right? That's the bent that most of them have. But the second part is just as important. it's like a wolf pack, right? Where if you don't uphold the standard, you'll get torn apart. And that includes, and probably is most importantly applies to me. Because think about this for a second. If I ever hurt anybody or screw anybody over and don't fix it, right? How quickly do you think White Feather is demolished?
Overnight.
Overnight, because the brand will have been cracked, right? So the brand is integrity, it's trust, it's action bias, it's abundance mindset, it's fighting for the American dream, it's gritty and raw, it's not super flashy. This is the nicest place I've ever been in from a recording perspective, right? And so I'm like, I partner with people to help me with the quality, right? But I'm a combat engineer, right? It's like, if you want me to blow something up, I'm going to blow something up, right? If you want me to build something, it's not going to be pretty, but it'll work, right? It's right. So that is the I guess DNA of White Feather, and that's the brand, right? So Kimberly, back to your question as chief branding officer, I'm like, be brutal about it. Protect the brand at all costs, you know? So she's not going to be brutal, but she'll protect the brand at all costs. Yeah. Oh, she can be a mama. Brutal. She can be a mama bear. Like if you're, I will say that the most sort of protective she ever gets is when she feels like somebody's taking advantage of me. And then it'll just be like, oh, right? Like I call it mama bear coming out, right? So as long as you don't try to take advantage of me, Kimberly, you'll never have a problem with Kimberly.
You know, and that's the thing. Like we've become so skeptical in our community, even when you try to help people, like genuinely, sincerely help them. Some people are skeptical about it. It's funny to me. It makes me laugh sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
I mean, it's natural if you think about it, because I've heard this from people. So a lot of our members are people who've gotten out of the military and gone into the corporate world, which I know you served your time in the corporate world too. And they were like, bro, it is a nightmare out here. Like you can't trust anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody tells you the truth. Yeah. Everybody is trying to screw you over to get a leg up on you. And again, I've never worked in the corporate world, so I have no idea, but that's what everyone says. And they have no reason to lie to me. And so if you're coming from any type of that environment, why would you trust somebody? You know?
You wouldn't.
So
I love the community that you built, and it's like you just didn't settle for anything less than what you're fully capable of.
Well, I tell you, that comes at a cost too, and we talk about this all the time.
What is the cost?
The cost is the primary cost is you work a lot harder for less money. So Kimberly and I talk about this all the time. Like we've been able to build financial freedom, but it has taken us a lot longer than it could have. If we had just hyper focused on margin, as opposed to building the brand, then, we could have reached our goals, probably 3 times faster.
Right.
But my question was always, what is the real goal, right? The real goal in my mind is not just financial freedom. Financial freedom it's a stepping stone to a life of significance. Okay. Now I want to say that again. Financial freedom for us is just a stepping stone to a life of significance. And that's what I really want. I want my time on this earth to have made a difference, to made a positive difference to people. And I also want to show my kids, Austin and Alana, right? He's 3.5 right now. She's 5.5. And she has definitely started watching, right? And he's starting to get to a point where he's watching. And I want them to understand that by my example, right, as best I can, that if you live a life of abundance and of impact and of significance, and love and sacrifice, if you're willing to do that, you can make your corner of the world a little bit better, a little bit more like heaven, right? I had somebody tell me this one time. He's a good friend of mine. He's the executive pastor of our church. And he was like, I think one of our mandates on this earth is to try our best to make it a little bit more like heaven while we're here. Right? And I was like, whoa.
Say that again.
And I was like, whoa. And that's another way of saying, I mean, people say it a lot of different ways, like do good or like be a good person or make an impact or what. Another way of saying it is, my time on this earth should, if I'm going to have a successful life, I want my time on this earth to have made my corner of the world a little bit more like heaven.
Let's go.
Right? Isn't that cool?
All in.
I love that.
I want to meet him.
Yeah, his name's Jason. Yeah, he's awesome.
It's funny that you bring up faith. For the first time this year, I discovered faith, and
Oh, cool.
it's very powerful.
Cool.
Like, and I get it. And whatever your faith is, you have a very accepting approach to everyone's individuality.
Yeah, well, and that's part of the American dream, right? Is you get to choose what you want.
Yes.
And like, I know what I believe, and I know what works for me, and what, and I've spent a lot of time thinking. I've done a lot of reading, a ton of questions, a ton of everything, right? Because my background is in science, right? I'm an aerospace engineer undergrad, and everything, and so I have a scientific mind. So I'm very questioning. I'm very like skeptical, and
inquisitive.
I'm absolutely not one of those people that you can just say something and I'll be like, oh, great, awesome, right? I'll be like, all right, show me a little bit of proof, right? And it's the same with my faith, right? And so what I have found is, number one, like there's an overwhelming amount of benefit that comes in your life from having faith. And it's in a lot of different ways, right? Not just faith in like, a higher power, or faith in order in the universe or God or whatever, but faith in your future, faith in yourself, faith in your fellow human, right? Faith in the vision that's in your mind to manifest itself in the world. And I'm nobody, right? You can hear heavyweights saying the same exact thing. Listen to Tony Robbins for half a second, right? Or Gary Vaynerchuk talk about manifesting things into a reality, right? Listen to all of the people, same thing with Cardone and everybody else. Like, it's not a coincidence that the people who continually create things that they envisioned in their mind, like Richard Branson, continually had these visions that he created and turned into a reality. Against Elon Musk, overwhelming odds against this vision in his mind becoming true in the world and changing the world, and yet it happened. Do you think it happened because he was just like, well, hope this works out? No, he believed in it and he was willing to dedicate himself to it, right? And for me, like, my faith just exists on a lot of different levels, one of which is there are so many unbelievable coincidences in the world that brought us here on this one inhabitable planet in the middle of the cosmos, and then brought you and me here and my wife and me here through all of this, to the point where, like, it becomes ludicrous to me to say it's coincidental. That's me. That's just me, right?
I agree.
And so I'm like, okay, if it's not coincidental, because that's a bit of a leap, right? That takes a little too much faith to believe it's all coincidental.
Right.
So what's the alternative? And, I also listen to Jordan Peterson, right? And Jordan Peterson is one of the most highly intellectual people in the entire world. Thought leader for 40 years, right?
Absolutely.
Not just new to the game.
Right.
And he has a very, very scientific, very analytical approach to it as well. And, he says a lot of the things that I think resonate with me as well. It's like, it takes quite a bit of a leap of faith to not believe that there's order in the universe. I mean, come on.
I was not a big energy, abundance, meditation, spirituality, all that stuff. I thought the definition of a real man was that you're always, you're always intense,
got it squared away.
Always intense.
Yeah.
You're never emotional. You're never vulnerable. That is what life is. That's what I try to instill in my boys. Mm-hmm. Really big fucking mistake, because what we can do is we can't take over other people's individuality. Everybody's got to make their own life choices. And I think that's the true definition of a real man today, is that you understand when it's time to make a change and you fucking take the action to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think real power, and I'm a big proponent of powerful men, right? Me being a powerful man, other men being powerful men. I'm a big proponent. Being powerful does not mean being abusive like my father.
Thank you.
And it does not mean being shut off to other people's opinions and being ignorantly focused in your own area. And it doesn't even necessarily meaning being big and strong, although I do, you're an inspiration, right? You've lost a ton of weight and you're on a path to health, right? And, I value fitness as well, because I think physical fitness is a real big part of creating the energy and the, if you have no energy and you have no drive because your body is not healthy, then you're not going to be able to like create anything.
Yep.
So I'm a big fan of, of that as well. But being a powerful man does not necessarily mean being super muscular. What, in my opinion, it means is being able to make your impact in the world and to empower other people to make their impact, including your children, in the world, and to love fiercely, right? And in my opinion, if a man is a powerful business person, but is on his third marriage because he can't seem to become a good enough person to keep his wife happy or to give her what she needs to be happy and to be satisfied, he's not a real man. That's me. That's my own personal. Being able to love fiercely and selflessly, which is a struggle, and we all fight it, right? So being able to love fiercely and selflessly to your spouse, to me, is an essence of also what it means to be a man.
You know what, I've been divorced, and I would agree with you 100%, because you have to explore parts of yourself as a man that are very challenging.
Yes.
If you're alpha, or, you're,
100%.
It's very difficult.
100%. Like we had my wife and I had an argument this morning, and it was over nothing, like taking the kids to school. But I felt like I really need to get my point across. But because I had stampeded over her getting her point across, she was very frustrated and upset. Right. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want to sit here and be understanding because I think I'm right. But if she doesn't feel loved and understood, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if I'm right if she doesn't feel loved and understood, because she's the center of everything. I told you the story about, like, am I gonna do all of that to link my life with this person and then be an asshole and screw it up because I don't want to listen?
Good for you.
No, right? And nobody's shooting at me. It's not, it's not the end of the world.
Buddy, this has absolutely been one of the most powerful episodes I've recorded, and I can't, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It doesn't even seem like we've talked for 10 minutes.
I know.
It hasn't. I'm genuinely thankful that you came in. I'm thankful that you shared all the insight, your journey, your life story. Is there a few people you want to give a shout out to? I mean, besides Kimberly, do you want to give some people that have helped you in your journey? Give them a shout out, and let's give them some love. And then definitely, we'll drop all the contact information that you have. I champion your cause. Whatever support I can give, I will, because I just think that all of us as a community need to do more for our military. Yeah. Active duty and service. Agree. Get involved in one way or another.
Agree. Yeah. I mean, I would say in general, even if it's not with us, if, anything that you can do to kind of help people. Because again, I mean, this, I would say the big thing I want people to take away from this is that the American dream is not only still very much alive, it's more alive than it ever has been. Right. And the thirst for it is greater than it ever has been, in my opinion. And there are people that protect and preserve it. And I'm no longer in uniform. So I now look at the people that are serving and I thank them, right? And, and it's the same thing for police officers and firefighters and people who, if I back home, this is a really big thing. I remember being in Afghanistan and, I would get, this was later. So I once we were married, I ended up deploying several more times. And and she was back home. And I remember feeling to myself, I never felt it the first time I was over there. I was only really afraid for myself and everything. But when I was over there again, several times, I remember thinking, she's back home by herself, right? And I remember thinking, as I patrolled and as there was all this stuff everywhere, she's going to be okay, because if the house catches fire, firefighters are going to put it out. And if somebody breaks into the house, there's going to be a cop that comes and takes care of her. And if she breaks down on the side of the road, she can dial 911 and somebody's going to be there. A first responder is going to be there to take care of her. If she gets, hurt, a first responder is going to take, you know what I'm saying?
There you go.
And so all of those people were protecting my home and the things that mattered to me the most while I was over there trying to keep the fight on foreign land. And so, just in general, if there's anything that you can do for someone who protects and preserves this American dream that's so beautiful and more beautiful today than it's ever been, do it, right? Even if it has nothing to do with me, but shout outs. I do want to say, I would say the guy that really helped us take this from an idea to and it was probably 7 years ago that I met him. And in the last 7 years, White Feather has gone from this to hockey stick, right? And his name's Matt Owens, and he runs OCG, Owens Consulting Group. And, he's a nasty civilian, but his dad was a sniper and a ranger in Vietnam. And he's a phenomenal guy. And I'll tell you this, not only did he help me, and he's a great businessman, right? He's flipped over 1,000 homes, and he's got funds and various things. He's got a fund that I'm working with him in called the Shield Fund, which like helps people get out of toxic debt, but at the same time gives investors 20% returns.
Okay.
Right? It's phenomenal, right? And so anyway, he's helping run that, and he does all this other stuff, and he's got a ton of different great opportunities. But more importantly than that, he taught me at the very beginning what it means to be an integrity-driven, abundance-minded business person. Over and over and over again, when things would go wrong, he would make a decision that meant less money for him, but protected people and preserved the relationship. And it was over. And I was like, can you build a business like this? Right? And he showed me that you could. And that's part now of the brand of White Feather, right? Which is protect the relationship at all costs and do the right thing whenever possible, even if it costs you money, right? And so, Matt, and that's why I trust him. I trust him implicitly, right? He's speaking at the summit as well.
He is.
Yeah. All the big guys.
I am so excited to actually meet the people that you've given shout outs to, the people that have made an impact on your life, because you speak with such gratitude and true appreciation. So I think you manifest a lot of your abundance, man.
Well, I appreciate it. I definitely try. All I'm doing is I've never really had an original thought in my life. I learn from people like you and a bunch of people that I listen to and read, and then just kind of apply that. But Bruce Norris, I want to say too, Bruce Norris, I don't think I need to plug him. Like, he's a local legend, right? And he definitely doesn't need me, but I will tell you, he is the kindest and most giving and abundant-minded individual. Like, he's made hundreds of millions. He doesn't need money anymore. He's all that, but he's playing
a different game.
He's playing a different game. He's playing like Bruce is playing a game that is beyond chess and checkers, right? He's playing the eternal game.
Yeah, he's playing the infinite game.
Yeah.
I'm excited to introduce another person to you that I think will be involved in this and want to get back. I just, buddy, I can't thank you enough, man.
Yeah, me too.
That was so much fun. So the one and only Edward Buddy Rushing, father, husband, real man, giver. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.